let's talk about it. Do we deserve love? Or is love something that happens despite us? Because most of the time when people talk about love, they talk like it's earned, like it's a reward. Like if you become the right kind of person, successful, attractive, stable, then love will eventually find you. But real life doesn't really work like that, and neither does this film. On paper, The Shape of Water sounds almost absurd. A mute woman, a government facility, and a creature being held inside of it, and somehow it's a romance. It should feel like a concept, something distant, something symbolic at best, but instead it feels strangely personal, like it's pulling a question out of you that you didn't even realize you were avoiding. Because this film isn't really about whether love is possible, it's about whether love is conditional, and more specifically, whether any of us deserve it. So let's talk about it. Eliza here is not our traditional protagonist. She doesn't enter the story with ambition or momentum, and she doesn't demand attention when she's on screen. The actor is great, by the way. She exists in a rhythm that has already been decided for her. Wake up, work, clean, return home, repeat. And the world around her doesn't actively reject her, but it doesn't acknowledge her at all. And that's a very specific kind of loneliness. Not the loneliness of being hated, but the loneliness of just being irrelevant, of walking through life and realizing that most people will never think about you unless you're directly in front of them. And then we get introduced to the creature, pulled from the Amazon and studied like an object, treated like something between a threat and a resource, not because it's done anything wrong, but because it exists outside of human understanding, and anything that can't be understood is usually reduced to something that can be controlled. That is what makes both of them pretty similar, not in appearance, not in circumstance, but in position. They're both placed at the edge of the world where being ignored is normal and being understood feels impossible. And when you live like that long enough, you stop expecting connection altogether. Now, contrast that with a character named Richard Strickland, played by Michael Shannon. Strickland is definitely not ignored. He is respected, he is listened to, and he is obeyed. And in most stories, that would make him someone we would assume is stable, maybe even someone who has earned his place in this world. But in the film, it slowly reveals something unsettling about that assumption. Strickland believes in order, in control, in hierarchy, and being above what he considers is beneath him. And that mindset doesn't just shape how he treats the creature, it shapes how he treats everyone, even his own family and even himself. And this is where the film starts quietly breaking the idea of deserving, because Strickland has everything society tells us should lead to fulfillment: status, authority, a family, and stability. But there's no warmth in him, no softness, no openness, no real connection, just entitlement. He doesn't ask, how do I love? He assumes I should be loved. And that gap between entitlement and understanding is where the film begins to draw its line. Because maybe love isn't something that follows success. Maybe success has nothing to do with it at all. What makes Eliza and the creature's relationship so unsettling to some people isn't just what it is, it's what it removes. There is no shared language between them, no verbal communication, and no explanation. And yet, their understanding of each other becomes more precise than most spoken relationships in the film and even outside of film, because everything they communicate exists underneath words. They communicate through gestures, through attention, through presence. Eliza doesn't interpret the creature as something broken or incomplete. She interprets it as something alive, something with interiority, something with fear, curiosity, intelligence, something that is not asking to be fixed, but is asking to be understood. And the creature responds in the same way, not through speech, but through recognition, through softness, through trust that builds slowly without being demanded. And that is what makes it feel almost disarming, because there's no transactional layer to it, not expectation of performance, and no need to prove worthiness. Just two beings recognizing something in each other that the rest of the world refuses to acknowledge. And once you see it like that, it stops feeling like a fantasy and starts feeling like a question the film is asking back at us. I would say a lot of the discomfort around this film doesn't come from the creature, it comes from the absence of rules. We are used to love being structured. We are used to boundaries that tells us what is acceptable, what is realistic, and what is normal. And when something exists outside of that structure, our instinct is classifying it as wrong. Not because it's harmful, but because it's unfamiliar. And the film knows this. It doesn't try to argue that relationship is normal. It doesn't sanitize it or reshape it into something more digestible. Instead, it leaves it intact and forces the viewers to sit with their reaction to it. Because the real question isn't whether the relationship fits our expectation, it's why we need it to. What does it say about us that we struggle to accept love that doesn't follow the rules we've built around it? So, if you strip everything away from this film, setting, creature, design, plot, it keeps returning to one core idea: recognition. Not romanticized love and not idealized love. Just a moment of being fully seen by another consciousness and not being reduced. Eliza is seen by the creature in a way the world has never offered her. Not as silent, not as lacking, but as complete. And she offers the same in return. And in that exchange, something shifts. Because neither of them are asking, "What can you give me?" They're asking without words, "Do you see me?" And the answer for once is yes. And that yes is enough to build something the world around them will never understand. So, do we deserve love? If love is something we earn, then it becomes fragile, conditional, something that can be withheld. And most people at some point in their life will feel like they've felt that condition. Not because they're unworthy, but because the conditions are never really clear. But if love is not earned, the question changes completely. It stops being about worth and starts being about recognition, about presence, about whether someone somewhere is willing to see you without turning away. Maybe that's what this film is really suggesting. That love isn't a reward for becoming someone else. It's not something you graduate into. It's something that happens when two things in the world stop pretending they don't need to be seen, and for a moment, they are. Thank you for watching. If you love this video, feel free to subscribe, do what you gotta do. I ain't gonna force you, do your thing. I hope that you guys enjoyed this segment, this topic. I really did love watching this movie, and shout out to the 3 people who did suggest it to me. You guys put me on. But God bless. You guys stay safe, and I will see you in the next video. We out.